I think the first thing, if you're in gray iron and you want to go to ductile iron, we believe and we project ductile iron will grow at a faster rate than knowledge of the process.
Right.
What works, what doesn't work.
Correct.
What kind of defects and how we can solve those defects.
Right.
All that knowledge is there with us. There are many processes to introduce magnesium.
Right.
Into making ductile iron. The good foundries are moving towards, but iron castings cannot vanish. Let me give you an example.
How has Indian Foundries changed during that 40-year period? Like, what is just something you've noticed?
Things which I have noticed.
In layman terms, what is CBAM exactly? Like,
so CBAM,
I would say maybe Elkem is more of a solutions provider.
We are only a solutions provider.
Okay.
Products are a part of the solution.
After the first 1 hour that I've spent with Mr. Iyer in the morning, understanding that Elkem is not really just a company supplying inoculants and nodulizers, but in fact, you are a solutions provider, right? The rich
Absolutely.
legacy that you bring, the amount of, probably money that you'll be saving a client, getting it the first time right with your knowledge and experience that you're sharing, not only just supplying a product. That is something I think we are looking forward to learning on this podcast right now.
Absolutely.
Right?
You're perfectly on the dot.
Right. So let's just get straight ahead. So Mr. Iyer, again, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Right. You have a 120-year history with Elkem, right?
Yes.
So it's a pretty established company, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there will be a lot of verticals that Elkem is covering, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the different departments and what your area of focus for the Indian industry.
We are the inventors of Soderberg electrode.
Okay.
Which is used in Ferro Alloy melting. That's how the origin of Elkem came.
Okay, this was way back, probably.
Way back in 1904.
Right.
Today, we have three business verticals. One is carbon solutions, where we supply carbon-based products to the Ferro Alloy industry, to the aluminum industry.
Right.
And it's also the lining material in the furnaces.
Right, right.
So that's one division.
Okay, got it.
On the other division is silicon products.
Right.
Where we make silicon, ferrosilicon, everything related to those silicon,
right.
alloys, and other materials which come into that.
Right.
And the third division is silicones, which is a chemistry of silicon with a polymer background.
Right.
And that's a big business as well. And every day, directly or indirectly, you touch Elkem or Elkem touches
Okay,
you.
with some product in your daily life or the
daily
other.
life.
Right.
So we have a wide variety of portfolio of products, B2B, and we touch everybody's life on a daily basis. That's on the product side.
That's
but
great.
More than the product, it's about technology. 10% of our people are in R&D.
Okay, so you're actively also changing the game for the future. That's how you stay relevant, I would assume.
Yeah.
Right.
And sustainability, you can call it the ESG portfolio.
Right.
Is very high. We want to be carbon neutral by 2050. That's
correct. I think that is a really important part of the business today, especially for Elkem, as I'm told, right?
I wouldn't say it's only for Elkem, it's for all the industries.
Right. But it's basically something you're actively working on.
Yeah.
Not only to maybe control your own process, but also control your customers and suppliers.
Absolutely.
If you can help them out with the initiative, right?
Yeah.
That's great. So this is probably some of your Indian operations that you're holding today, right?
Yeah.
So this is largely the Indian side. So what about 120 years ago? Like, how did things change up to that maybe inception point to today? Like, what products did you all start off with? What products did you all cancel along the way? Like, you told me a little bit off camera about your Indian beginnings after independence, right?
Yeah.
So they were.
So at one point when we started the Soderberg electrode and innovated. That was an innovation.
Right.
We were in the business of supplying furnaces.
Okay.
Ferro Alloy furnaces. And even today, if you go to some of the plants, you'll see the old furnaces with an Elkem logo.
Okay, so this would be how long would these furnaces be running?
The first furnace came up in 1956-57.
Okay, so
because India came with a lot of steel plants.
Right.
And steel plants needed Ferro Alloys. We have a lot of deposits of chrome and manganese.
Correct.
So we were the first ones to enter this market in India, setting up furnaces, and that led to a business. But that's a business now we are not into.
So a lot has changed today, right? That's why we're here. That's what we're here to cover mainly, because now you're actively going into the Indian foundry industry. which is what mainly what our viewers are about and what Elkem is trying to push for currently.
Yeah.
So give us a little idea about when did the company start its Indian operations on the ground level for the foundry industry?
Okay, I think I can trace back to the late 90s.
Okay.
Before that, we were still supplying foundry products.
Right.
Our foundry products history goes back to Ferro Alloys. When we were making Ferro Alloys, ferrosilicon,
Right.
we were allowing it. That goes back in maybe 60s, 70s. I think.
But these were all like imported.
They were all
India.
imported.
Okay.
We started off as selling the products, bringing it into India to build a market. Slowly, we gained the market.
Right.
And then our first manufacturing base was set up in 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
when
about
we acquired a plant in Nagpur.
Okay, got it.
And today that plant is transformed.
Right.
It's the state-of-art plant.
Right.
It has got an R&D for foundry. It has got a technical service lab for foundry, which is equal to the R&D that we have in Kristiansand.
Right.
We have a refractories application lab there, and the most modern plant, I would say, in terms of crushing capabilities, sizing capabilities.
Okay.
And then we are expanding that plant. Last year we expanded the plant. We are going ahead with another expansion this year. We are creating new product lines.
So you're seeing a lot of demand for ferro alloys, especially in India. This is the reason for your expansion?
Yeah, absolutely. Foundry industry requires high quality, consistent products.
Right.
And we are here to serve the market.
Right, right. That's great. Okay, so you were telling me also about like 10% of your staff is engaged in R&D.
Yeah.
Right, so you're very prepared for the future.
Yeah.
Right, so that's great. So that means you'll also be able to share a lot of insights as to what's coming. What Foundryman can expect to be happening in the next 10, 12, 15 years.
See, our last product that we introduced was the Ultra series of products.
Okay.
And we continue to introduce products.
Right.
Based out of our research.
Okay.
And the customer's knowledge, what the customer wants.
Right.
And the future trends. So that has been our focus. How do we help the foundries do better?
Correct.
So it's not only about the products, it's about the technology and the knowledge that we come into the foundry. We study the processes. We do some, let's say, health checkup of the foundry. We suggest a package of products, and that's how we add value. Because today, business is based on what value you bring to the customer.
Right, right.
Agreed. If you don't bring value to the customer, you don't exist.
Correct.
Long term, I would put it this way.
Right.
And 120 years is a testimony to the fact that we have been adding value to all our customers.
Right.
Irrespective of which area we belong to.
Right. So Elkem is doing a lot of stuff, right? I'm going over some of that right now. Yeah. So for example, your main product, I think, would be probably inoculants.
Our main product is FSM and inoculants for the foundry business.
Right. So like to the layman, what exactly is an inoculant?
Okay. An inoculant is a ferrosilicon alloy.
Okay.
With elements like rare earths.
Right.
With elements like strontium.
Right.
With elements, depending on the composition.
Correct.
So what it does is it is used in two types of cast iron. We are in the cast iron business. One is ductile iron and the other is gray iron.
Okay, so ductile iron and gray iron. Those are your two verticals you're operating.
Two
types of
customer base which we cater to.
Right, right.
Now, in inoculants are used both in ductile and gray iron.
Correct.
And what it does is helps generate the right kind of microstructure that is required in the final product.
Okay.
So we work a lot on the microstructure.
Right. And
these inoculants are absolutely necessary. They are added in small quantities. Inoculants would be typically 0.2 to 0.4, 0.6% depending on the composition.
Correct.
But they are very essential to give the final properties.
Right.
And the second product is nodulizers.
Correct.
Which is used only in ductile iron. And nodulizers give nodules, converts the carbon into nodule form.
Okay.
And that gives the excellent machinability and mechanical properties that are required.
Got it. So if I'm say a foundry person right now and I'm making maybe gray iron, right? I've been making manufacturing gray iron for maybe it's a hereditary foundry, family foundry. I'm third generation. I have my gray iron foundry, and I want to go towards ductile iron, right? So what are the initial steps I need to take to understand how this nodalizer works for me? What the steps are that I need to take to maybe go towards
I think
SGI?
the first thing, if you're in gray iron and you want to go to ductile iron, contact one of the Elkem people.
Okay,
We
that's
will
great.
support you through all the way.
Right.
Typically, globally,
Correct.
the ductile iron is higher because it gives much more better properties.
Correct. Correct.
The ratio of ductile to gray is higher. In India, it's the reverse. We are in the progressive stage.
Okay, so you mean globally people produce more ductile iron than gray iron?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in India, it's reversed.
Reverse.
Okay, so do
We
you think this
produce
is
9 million tons of gray iron. Roughly, I'm just giving you
right?
ballpark numbers.
Right.
2 million tons of 2 or 3 million tons of ductile iron.
Okay.
These are ballpark numbers.
Right. So for roughly about 25% of the market is
ductile iron.
Okay.
But globally, ductile iron can be 50% as well. Depends on the country. And ductile iron is something which will change in India.
Okay.
Going forward, we will have more ductile iron coming in.
Why do you think that only 25% of our market is ductile iron? Like, just based on your experience?
I think it is evolution of the industry.
Okay.
Everyone started with gray iron. That's easy to produce relatively.
Right.
But the demands of the end users are changing.
Correct.
And so it's a normal conversion which takes place.
Right.
I would say ductile iron is more difficult to produce.
Okay.
In relative, if you look at it.
Yeah, there are more processes involved, and it's a little more stringent with the quality.
It's more stringent. You have to be more careful.
Right.
But I would see, if I look at the growth rates, we believe and we project, ductile iron will grow at a faster rate than gray iron.
Okay. So basically,
the ratio will start changing over a period of time.
So if I go back to my third generation foundry, maybe persona that I just portrayed, I should basically be looking to get into ductile iron as fast as possible.
Absolutely.
To maybe keep myself sustainable.
Yeah.
Right.
Not only that, the value that you will get from a ductile iron will be more from a gray iron.
In terms of profit margin?
Yeah, you can say that.
Okay.
I would hesitate to go into profit margins.
Okay.
But ductile iron would be.
Mr. Iyer did say that there is more profit in ductile iron, by the way.
I would believe that is there. But that's for the foundryman. I don't want to step into the shoes of the foundryman. That's
probably.
You can put it probably.
Yeah.
According to me, with quotes and quotes.
Right. That's great. So, I mean, now that we have a little bit of the understanding of the market, 25% ductile iron, 75% gray iron, and you expect that percentage to go up for the ductile iron especially, because internationally you said it's about 50-50. Right. Yeah. So how is Elkem prepared to handle this demand? Like, what exactly actively are you focusing on to assist foundries in this transition phase of switching to ductile iron?
See, one of the things that we have established in India is our technical service center.
Okay.
And it's in Nagpur. It's close to the manufacturing location, where our assistant can be in form of technical support.
Okay.
During the process of transition. Let's say you have a defect and you want to solve the defect.
Right.
First of all, we can refer to a global network, because all our regions have people, have contacts in the industry, know the process.
Correct.
So we bank on a global network.
And there's also so much of data that you're collecting.
Yeah.
Right.
All the data is confidential.
Right.
We don't share one customer's data to another. That's
right.
very clear for us from an ESG perspective.
Got it.
And that's how you need to build trust with the customer.
Right.
But at the same time, the knowledge of the process.
Right.
What works, what doesn't work.
Correct.
What kind of defects and how we can solve those defects.
Right.
All that knowledge is there with us.
Correct.
Plus an R&D to develop any new requirements to meet the stringent and changing demands.
Correct.
So keeping all this in mind, if someone wants to convert from a gray iron to ductile iron, we can do a process study of his plant. We can go into the plant, give some suggestions.
Right.
And then work with the plant to see how to get the most optimum product.
Correct.
Because you need to give the right product for the right application.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think the lump size is also important of the for the
Yeah,
nodulizer.
it's the size of the nodulizer which is important.
Correct.
It is the particle size distribution when that size. If you take between 4 to 32, it's not only what is top and bottom. You have
Right.
to look at the total thing from a packing perspective. You need to look at it from a dissolution perspective, the
Right.
size of the ladle,
Correct.
the temperature. We have excellent what we call case studies.
Correct.
We have worked with foundries to optimize their process, save them money in terms of temperature reduction, in terms of machinability improvements, reduction in rejection rates because of metallurgical. I would hesitate because we are in the metallurgical side.
Right.
We are not into the binders and other rejections.
Right.
But on the metallurgical side, on the machinability, one of the things which is least focused is on machinability.
Right.
The tools are expensive. If you look at the total value chain and what it costs to machine a component,
Correct.
and then when you're machining, you find a defect. If you can solve it beforehand, there's a lot of saving.
Correct.
The tool life. If you look at the consolidated thing, I think we bring in a lot of value to the customer.
Right. So I would say, if I had to summarize Elkem from maybe a consumer's point of view, I'm running a foundry, I would say maybe Elkem is more of a solutions provider. Is that what
We
angle you're
are
trying to take?
only a solutions provider.
Okay.
Products are a part of the solution.
Right. That's basically how you touch the customer, but
Yeah.
mainly you're providing a solution.
We are
Right.
looking,
Right.
and that's why we have in our network, we have all people who speak the language of the customer in whatever business we do.
Correct.
So our sales team, our technical service team, are all foundry metallurgical engineers
Right.
with experience in the foundry business.
So there's a lot of hand holding going on in that.
Yeah.
Right.
And people are the biggest assets. We believe 70% of our success comes from people.
Right.
So when we talk of people, we have to really take care of them.
Correct.
Give them the opportunities, give them the
Correct. So what other services do you offer to foundries, especially the Indian arm of it?
See, now let me come to something which is inherent to Elkem. We have an Elkem business system. Okay, it's an adaptation of Toyota production system, but tailor-made to Elkem philosophy.
Right.
And we have been working on it for ages. We have something called Ferrous, which is an EHS system, health, safety, and environment system.
Right.
So if you ask me what the foundries I can offer additional to products and services related to what we sell,
Right.
we can help our customers optimize their business systems
Okay.
with these common things. Like the principles of EBS
Right.
is make to use, eliminate waste, processes under control. So the more you work on a system basis,
Correct.
the more benefits the foundries will get.
Okay.
So we have an example of a foundry. We invite foundries to come to our plant.
Correct.
We don't. We are very open.
Right.
And there's two reasons for it. You can learn from us,
Right.
and you can also teach us.
Right.
Because it's third eye can see things which we see daily.
Probably something you're overlooking. Right.
Yeah. So one of the foundries visited us and liked our system, which is the daily management, the way we work on 5S and the total system. It's not
Correct.
only the tools we are talking about.
Correct.
I'm talking of 5S as a tool, but it is on RCAs, process improvements, rules in use, etc., etc. And this foundry came and was so impressed. The owner had come and said, "Why don't you teach our team?" We spent some time helping them, hand-holding them. Their shop floor people came, visited. We went to their shop floor, gave them the trainings. So this is something which is not a service officially,
Right.
but it is something which everybody can benefit.
It's more value that you're giving the customer. Right. Got it.
Yeah, and our priority number one, and now we have included it in our code of conduct, is no harm to anybody, which means anybody coming to our facilities, anybody going to anything, any customer, for example, has to be safe.
Right.
So we are working a lot on that, and there is a lot of knowledge that is available within our system, which
Correct.
we can work with the customers to help them improve directly or indirectly. Directly in terms of our products and services,
Right.
indirectly by learning and sharing some of this knowledge to improve the processes totally.
Correct. What do you think the road is ahead for Indian Foundries? Because sustainability is something now that every seminar is covering.
Yeah.
Are we really understanding how important this is and how, how many years it is in the future, or is it like very, very imminent? Is it very, very close?
I would say sustainability is getting the level of importance that it actually deserves.
Okay.
We know the effect of climate change.
Right.
Right? We know the effect what happens in winter in Delhi.
Right.
We know the effect closer home to the pollutions that we create.
Correct.
One statistics I'll give you. By 2030, I read somewhere that the number of microplastics
Right.
in the sea will be more than the fish. And when we talk of one earth with the population, we are destroying a legacy for our children.
Correct.
So sustainability is really important. We are in the top 1% of the companies in the world in our sustainability reporting. It has been certified by EcoVadis. We have transparency in CDP, etc. So if you go to our website, you'll find a lot of information on what we are doing on sustainability.
Okay, so it's all freely accessible.
It's our sustainability reporting, if you look at it, is one of the best I have seen.
I think I'll try and show a few slides on the video right now while we're talking.
Yeah.
Right.
You feel free to go to our website. There's a lot of information available. But for me, as far as the foundries, Indian foundries and the Indian perspective is concerned,
right,
this is becoming more and more important, because gone are the days when we talked of localization. We have legislations coming like CBAM. We have other legislations which are coming across the country.
Correct.
India is committed to 2070, if I remember correctly,
right,
to be below the threshold.
right,
So all of us have to work together towards sustainability. It's not about 8% in Nagpur of our current electricity consumption
right,
is green, and we want to go higher and higher over the years. This is only a rooftop solar,
right,
but we want to go higher and higher. That's one. If you look at our operations, we want to source sustainable ferrosilicon for our alloying in Nagpur.
right,
But at the same time, if I look at my plants in rest of the world, 83% of the energy that we use, and we use a lot of energy, is from green. A significant portion is recycled in our ferro alloy furnaces, smeltings, what we call. In our silicon furnaces, we supply heat for district heating, etc., etc. We recover as much as heat as possible.
right.
We also are doing work on carbon capture and storage.
Correct.
We are also doing work on a new process by which we call it the Sicalo process, which is something the R&D is working on how to reuse the reductants.
Right.
Because we are taking quartz and making silicon ferrosilicon. Is there something we can do? And that's a joint project with the university, and you can find real details on that.
Are you allowed to share anything on this video?
No, at the moment it's
still under wraps.
Pilot stage, but it's about making metal carbon neutral by 2050.
Right, right.
So we have a lot of works.
I like that you're actually collaborating with universities, where also getting them into the industry, and it's basically pulling more people into the foundry industry, right, through the university road, other than getting people by employment.
I think one of the biggest challenges the Indian foundry industry is facing and will continue to face is both the quality and the quantity of the right capability which is required.
Right, right.
Gone are the days when people used to feel important. to be called in the middle of the night because the steel plant has some challenges. Now the generation which is coming up is going to be looking for more work-life balance, is looking
Right.
for, I wouldn't say will be looking for,
Correct.
and ideal workplace.
What are your thoughts on the whole 90-hour work week that is that is pretty much going on?
I think I will put it very simple. It's the value that you add.
Right.
It's not the quantity of hours.
Right.
It's the quality of output that you deliver. I will keep it as simple. I don't want to go into any
Right. Otherwise,
controversies.
you end up
Apologies for that. I don't want viral videos on that.
Right. This will probably end up on Twitter and
Yeah.
more than YouTube.
And then possibly I'll have to do a lot of explaining.
Right. That's good. So I have a follow-up question. You mentioned CBAM.
Yeah.
Right. So in layman terms, what is CBAM exactly? Like,
So CBAM, let me take a simple product like steel.
right.
Steel is one, to make steel, iron and steel, the process uses a lot of carbon.
Right.
And we generate a lot of carbon dioxide. So Europe is coming up with this legislation, which is saying that everyone has to reduce. When you're making 1 ton of steel, you have to go below a certain threshold.
Okay.
And markets are open. You can make steel in India. You could be making steel in any part of the world.
In a more polluting country. Right.
So the force the companies to move towards lower carbon emissions.
Okay. Right. So it's sort of like a standardization of the.
No, it
pollution.
imposes penalty for
Right.
those who are
Right.
using more.
And taking
emitting more
advantage of a
carbon
lower
dioxide.
cost as well. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there, a lot of work has to be done in technology.
Right.
You have to invest in that. I mean, right now it may look very commercially unattractive because you have to work on new processes. You have to
Correct.
look at hydrogen as a reductant.
It
etc.
also takes into account the macroeconomics, because your government also has to be supportive of solar, supportive of, maybe like we have a very good CNG push going on towards the western side. So these governments also actively have to look at the infrastructure they are providing and make sure they are also enabling companies to fulfill their objectives with this CBAM policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think the Indian government is right on track
Right.
in terms of focusing on sustainability.
Right.
We will see a lot of legislation on that.
Right.
We will also see a market for this to reward those who are the first movers.
Right.
So I'm expecting a lot of changes coming in this direction. And this is good for the world. It's not only,
Correct.
you can't have an isolated country which can pollute and all the rest are
And
working.
supply cheaply. Right.
So there's a fine balance taking care of people and the planet.
Right.
And we have to make sure that all of us leave a legacy of
Right.
good future for our next generations.
Right. What are some steps that Elkem is taking towards meeting the CBAM policies? Like, just in maybe three very simple examples.
See, CBAM is specifically to Europe.
Okay.
So our manufacturing locations are compliant
Right.
in the sense we are working towards sustainability.
Right.
We are making towards carbon neutral products.
Right.
We have plants across the world. Each one of them is working in the same direction. There's no differentiation between a plant in Europe and a plant.
They're all standardized, right?
Standards.
Right.
So all of us have to work. Like I said, Nagpur is going towards green energy. We will be, if I look at Nagpur in the future, I would be using scrap from some other industry.
Correct.
I would be using silicon, which is green. I mean, ferrosilicon with a lower carbon footprint, which is based on hydropower or from our internal manufacturing locations. So the only thing which I'm going to add, which is non-green in that sense, will be the alloying material.
Correct.
Magnesium and strontium and barium, etc. So that's 10%. So 90% of my process, 90% will be green. And every plant is working in this direction. We have biocarbon. One of the first plants in the world is in Limpio, which is 100% biocarbon based ferrosilicon.
Okay.
And that's being tried out everywhere in We have a biocarbon share of almost 28% now.
Okay, that's the third of the world's
No, I'm talking of Elkem.
right.
In our plants,
Right.
28% is biocarbon share.
Okay, so that's a third of your production that's
Yeah,
coming from there.
that we
Right,
use.
right.
So
That's
we
amazing.
and then we are looking at carbon capture and
Right.
process improvements, and the Cicalo project is very promising.
Right. That's great. So you have typically been in the Indian industry from, I think, 86, 87 is when you all started
Yeah,
your
we
Indian
started
operations,
as a
right?
legal entity in 87,
Right.
and today we are in all the businesses of Elkem
Correct.
in India.
So that's what, like 35,
It's 87 is
about 40
38
years.
years.
Almost 40 years.
Yeah.
Right. So how has the Indian, how have Indian foundries changed during that 40-year period? Like, what if just something you've noticed?
See, the things which I have noticed is that foundries are more demanding. Foundries are improving on quality. Performance is a key.
Correct.
Foundries are investing in growth projects.
Right.
There's a lot of capacity being introduced. Foundries are becoming more pollution conscious.
Correct.
I'll give you an example. There are many processes to introduce magnesium.
Right.
Into making ductile iron.
Right, right.
I would see the good foundries are moving towards low magnesium containing ferro alloys.
Okay. So it's more of a gradual addition than something that pollutes a lot.
So if you take a 10% magnesium and you take a 6% magnesium, you'll have a calmer reaction, less smoke, and a less spillage. So I can see many foundries are moving towards that shift.
Prioritizing safety also at the same time.
I mean, if you have a violent reaction when you're doing when you're tapping the metal and in the treatment ladle, you are generating a lot of smoke.
Right.
And it's about capturing that smoke, which is important.
Correct. Because especially I started in a cast iron foundry 10 years ago, and I used to always come around for the the treatment that was happening, because it was like fireworks.
Yeah,
there were like these sparkles all over the place, and
so the calmer reaction you have, the better it is.
Correct.
You can have a strong reaction with, let's say, 10-12% magnesium, which may be cheaper to add. It may show you a lower magnesium addition rate, but at the end, what is the residual magnesium efficiency?
Right.
I'm seeing many foundries looking at that as one way to improve, and the more calmer reaction you have, the more better output you have.
Right.
In terms of quality.
That's amazing. So now the ferrous industry is also going through a little bit of a challenge, right? We have lighter metals like magnesium is one. Right. In fact, I'm going to be attending a conference on magnesium in Pune this coming week. But aluminium is another that also keeps cropping up. So how is Elkem prepared, considering so much of your business is coming from the ferrous sector? Like, what do you see that as a threat, or?
So I don't see that as a threat.
Right.
In fact, we do planning on a longer horizon.
Right.
I don't think iron castings are going to vanish.
Right.
Yes, the focus is to make lighter castings. The focus is to improve the mechanical properties, the machinability, etc. But iron castings cannot vanish.
Right.
Let me give you an example. You may have EV cars, which removes the engines and puts in motors.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
Now, if you look at the engine block, it's one of the largest weighting
parts
elements.
In a car, right?
But you still need brakes, you still need steering wheels, you still need steering knuckles, and a host of other products.
Right.
In the foundry business. So, with the fact that Europe, America, and maybe other advanced countries,
correct,
there has to be a growth in, let's say, mobility solutions across the world. Even if we shift to electric, and we have seen that EV is a shift which is going to happen.
Correct.
We are positioned because we are producing one of the best solutions for electrical steel. So we supply ferrosilicon to electrical steel, high purity one, ferrosilicon. So the more electrical steel is used, some product goes into that business.
Okay.
So we are quite balanced in our approach.
Right.
But I don't see iron castings disappearing. It has been there as a most effective solution for a long period of time. It will
Correct.
continue.
Correct.
It's the transformation which will happen. Maybe engine blocks. We don't know how the hydrogen is going to play.
Correct.
That may be something which is coming up. What kind of equipment and things which will be required for a hydrogen car, for example. So it's a change which is happening in the technology front, but it is not possible, according to me, at least during my lifetime and maybe the next lifetime, that iron castings will disappear.
Correct.
But the trend will be towards lighter castings. We'll have to make it lighter and we'll have to make it more
Correct.
Efficient.
Correct. I think also there is a certain amount of consumer demand that's going up, right? More number of people can now afford a car thanks to, I mean, population is one factor, but also the ability to buy now and pay later. That is also putting a car in many households that would not be able to afford upfront.
Yeah, but then you look at it, I mean, you talked of iron castings.
So that is pushing up the demand for iron castings anyway by more volumes.
At least in India.
Right.
It's also with manpower requirements. Iron castings will move from certain geographies to India and vice versa.
Correct.
It's also the fact that we'll have more public transport for efficiency.
Correct.
We'll have more windmills.
Right. So railways and energy will be
right. Windmills.
Right.
We supply products to the windmill industry.
Correct.
So when you look at the overall picture, I don't see a significant demand or reduction in iron castings to take place.
Right.
It will be, form will change. You need more wind power.
Right.
Because solar will stop generating after 6.
Right.
Something has to take the peak demand.
Correct.
Either one of the solutions is pumped storage, which many companies in India are looking at, or you look at wind or quick generation of electricity. You can't have thermal power plants going switch on and off.
Right.
You need more hydropower, and that's where the government is also moving towards that direction.
Correct. I think that pretty much summarizes it. So Ferrous Foundries are here to stay. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be the summary. That's great. China.
Yeah.
Right. You do in fact do business with China, so you would have a little bit of idea about what policies are shifting. You know how consumers are reacting, the end consumers reacting to this whole China plus one policy. So how is it benefiting the Indian industry, and what changes do you see happening in the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years maybe?
One of the things with China is going very aggressive, and which is going to impact the world. They are also going heavy on sustainability.
Okay.
So a lot of capacity, inefficient, smaller furnaces, for example, making ferrosilicon, will be shut down.
Okay, even in China?
Even in China.
Okay.
And there will be bigger, efficient, controlled emission furnaces coming up.
Right.
So China is also moving on the technology part.
Right.
They are also moving on the quality.
Right.
And sustainability front.
Right. Right.
So those changes will happen in the Chinese industry. Now, on a geopolitical situation, we are at the crossroads.
Right.
Things are changing very fast. I cannot comment which way it is going. Right now, the China plus one is there. It is also that every country has to protect its domestic industry. It has to protect its domestic workforce. So it's going to be a challenging situation. But eventually, like all developed nations, as China develops more and more, the costs will increase and the economics will play out.
Even labor costs. I mean, the average Chinese person earns 52,000 USD a year. That is the average Chinese pay, compared to 2,900 USD per annum per capita for an Indian salary.
So while the salary may be good way of benchmarking, I think it is the productivity which also needs to be factored.
It also shows that productivity per person is much higher. That's why they're able to afford.
So we need to work on our productivity goals as well.
Right.
We need to do a lot of automation, digitalization, a lot of IoT 4.0 or Industry 4.0, what you're talking about, has to come in. We cannot afford to continue on a so-called low-cost manpower basis.
Right.
We need to look, as an industry, we need to look at that much more carefully. I mean,
Right.
First of all, with the labor force becoming scarce,
Right.
you can hear it in some of the foundry sectors, in some of the regions.
Right.
During certain times, you don't have labor. You have to curtail your production, maybe
Correct.
because of labor shortage.
Yeah, I personally know a few foundries that stock up before the summer,
Yeah.
right, and then reduce their production.
Yeah.
Right.
So, how do you manage that? Because stocking is not an ideal solution from a
Right.
capital intensity
Right.
perspective.
Right.
So, you need to work on solutions which actually use a lot of digitalization, automation, Industry 4.0. And that is also something which is going to attract your workforce for the future.
Right.
If you have a manual operation, are you going to have your next generation come and work for you?
It's a problem.
It's a challenge.
Right.
Like in a plant in Nagpur, now we have a rule that nobody will be within 10 meters of molten metal.
Okay. 10 meters.
Yeah, that is a rule in our company.
Right. Right.
That I have to keep everyone safe, so I need to have everybody move away 10 meters.
So your pouring is all automatic.
We have one line which we have
Right.
converted. We are
Okay.
in the process of making the other lines.
Okay.
But that's a rule for safety. I care for people, that's why I
Right.
have to do it.
Right.
So every foundry has to look at it from that angle.
Right.
I mean, how many accidents actually happen in foundries? What is the cost of that? I mean, we talk of statistics. It depends on how you look at it. If you look at the statistics, road accidents, the government is working on
Largest
it.
in the world.
Largest in the world if you
India.
look at numbers.
Right.
But if you look at it from a human perspective,
Right.
every death
Right.
impacts a family. If I take a family
Of
size
course.
of 4,
Of course. Of course.
suddenly someone is gone.
Right.
That family, depending on the situation, I would say majorly gets disrupted.
Right.
You lose a person, an individual who's contributing to society,
Right. And everyone is, to be honest, in some way or form.
some way or the other.
Right.
And on top of it, the family gets affected, displaced, and suddenly comes under strain. It takes time to recover.
Right.
So when you look at accidents, we have a very simple policy. Every risk has to be analyzed. Every incident, even if it causes no harm, has to be reported.
Right.
It has to be transparently. It has to be investigated.
Right.
You have to take remedial actions.
Right.
And then you have to verify those actions as well.
Correct.
The management of change becomes very important. So when you look at this, we think safety is a cost by providing, let's say, PPEs or making a solution. For us, 10 meter is important because there should be no risk to the people.
Correct.
When you do this 10 meter rule, automatically you have to come to automation.
Right. Right. You're forced to, almost.
You're forced to.
Right.
Okay. So if you look at the foundry, how are people close to metal?
Right.
You mentioned about this camera temperature
software,
measurement,
right,
software
right,
and
right.
the cameras. We need to have those things in place.
Correct.
Why do you have to have a person going and next to the furnace and taking the temperature?
Correct. Correct.
These are things which are simple enough to do automation, and they
Right.
don't cost much as well.
And this is the essence of Industry 5.0.
Yeah.
It's the textbook definition of what 5.0 is.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and now OEMs,
Right.
let's face it, OEMs are going to use some components in the cars. Okay, reliability is becoming important. For that reliability, you need to have a process which captures your data of process.
Correct.
Right? Now, I'll take a simple example and say you have to add X kgs of an FSM,
Right.
ferrosilicon magnesium. You need to keep a record. How do we automate that?
Right.
How do you store that data so that it is automatically recorded? You don't need people to be punching the data anymore.
Right.
You need people to analyze the data. You need
Correct.
people to work with artificial intelligence to
Draw
find
conclusions from that.
improvements
Right. Right.
from the data.
Right.
You need to handle data in a much better way.
Right.
I mean, I would see a future of a foundry. I would be very happy to see a paperless foundry.
Correct.
That's what everyone should dream for.
Right. So I think the future is bright for the Indian industry, for the Indian manufacturing sector, especially for Ferrous Foundries, as you
Yeah.
mentioned,
Yeah.
and for Elkem, from what I can see.
Yeah, I think 120 years is a lot of legacy. We have to live to our promise.
Right.
We should be there for the next 100, 150 years. Forms will change, products will change,
Right.
people will change, but the core values don't change.
So 120 years for Elkem, and you also told me you're about to complete 20 years with Elkem.
Yeah, I'll complete
Right.
20 years in
So
Elkem.
in next year, I think.
Yeah, and that is one of the things we believe that, as I said before, 70% of the success is people.
Right.
And you need to take care of people. You need to take care of all stakeholders. You need to be transparent in your reporting. You need to have the governance systems. We have a speak up channel.
Right.
We follow a zero discrimination policy. And on top of it, we do a lot of CSR work in the areas that we work.
Correct.
We have to give back to the society.
Right.
We have, as a part of a program in India, we have 2 buses in Nagpur, 1 bus in Bombay. We work with education and empowering the society, dropout children.
Right.
I think we have touched and changed lives of almost, I would say in the last few years, 5,000 people. It's a small thing for our company, but it is very important for us to give back to the society, because it's not about profits, it's about taking care of all the stakeholders, whether it's
Right.
an employee,
Right.
society, the government and other stakeholders,
Right.
the shareholders, and the internal people.
So even a customer that actively buying from Elkem is in some way contributing to the CSR activities that you are actually being able to do. Correct. In some way, they are a small percentage contributing to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
activity.
See,
Right.
we are because of our customers.
Correct.
If you don't take care of that
Correct.
element, and as I said, we want people to come to visit us.
Right.
Our people go to foundries, we help them. So come and help us. Come and see what we can do together.
Correct.
And it's not about customers. We also do the same with our suppliers,
Correct.
because they're an integral part of our value chain.
Right.
We work with them to improve. We want a green flow. The raw material which I buy, I should not test it. And what I sell to my customer, they should not test it. It saves a lot of value in the system.
Right.
The entire value chain is
Cross-checking.
optimized.
Right.
Just I'm talking of a simple thing about cross-checking.
Right. It's so much redundant work that is being done
Everybody is checking.
at every cycle. Right.
Do we really think the whole value chain is efficient?
Right.
Because everybody is adding cost.
Correct.
Cost of checking. If you have a system which is a green flow,
Correct.
it's a saving for the entire industry.
Correct. I never looked at it that way. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's something new I've learned.
Always.
That is nice. I've learned a lot from you, Mr. Iyer. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
If, like, do you have any other message that you'd like to share?
I think 3 messages. One is work on ESG, environment, social, and governance.
Right.
2 is add value across.
Right.
And my experience is that the more you add value, the more you last longer. So you need to work on your innovation. You need to work on improvements continuously. And you need to make sure that you are ready for the changes which are happening.
Right.
So those would be my 3 messages.
Like world policies.
I would say changes in technology, changes in legislation, changes in demands.
Okay, so overall change.
Overall change.
Right.
And you need to keep changing to meet that
Correct.
demands which will change.
That's
Nothing
great.
is static. And it's not about cost per ton, I would say. It's the value per ton, if you can call it,
Right.
that you add to your customer. Because sometimes I feel sad that everybody looks at India as a low-cost country.
Right.
Everybody is talking of low value. But my perception in the last 20 years is the more you add value, the more you demonstrate your value to the customer. It's not a low cost country. If you focus on quality, you focus on consistency, you focus on reliability, the value comes automatically. Today, I think in our businesses, we have businesses where we have market share for 60 to 70%.
Okay.
That has come by a lot of hard work which my team has done, which our people have done across the globe and in India.
Right.
And it's sustaining because there is value addition, there is a close contact with the customer, and it's getting the appropriate value.
Correct.
If there is no transaction which will happen if there is no value seen.
Right.
That is the basic of economics.
Correct. Agreed.
And every one of us has to do that. So we are not, you mentioned about China. People think the quality, consistency of Chinese material is not good, right? But then it's about transparency. What is the expectation? What is the requirement from them? You can get, let's say, the best shoes in the world and the cheapest shoes. You have to make a choice.
Right.
And every one of us is in that dilemma. I would say there's a book called Both And. We need the best value.
Okay.
And we need the best quality suitable for the. It's not, we always have a trade-off between price and quality.
Correct.
We should not go for the trade-off.
So your objective is to get both.
Yeah.
Right.
You need the best price for that application, and you need to add enough value that the price is justified.
Right.
So you can get the same material chemistry theoretically at a lower price, but then you end up with, let's say, 1% extra rejection because of fluctuation. Correct. If you have a thinner controlled product, you have that. It may come once in a while, but then it's a dangerous thing, right?
I think, what is your overall goal for Elkem in the next 5-10 years? Where do you see the company going? The Indian operation, Southeast Asia specifically?
I think we are actively expanding our current portfolio of products. We are currently expanding our manufacturing capabilities. We are looking for growth projects. We would be actively looking for quicker projects, let's say, I would say an M&A types. We, in terms of value, our ambition is to double in the next 3 years in revenues, I would say, not value. We would double our revenues at least in the next 3 years. That's our goal, internal goal, by greenfield, brownfield, and M&A, as well as getting more products from Elkem into India.
Right.
Finding new applications, creating new markets, expanding the existing portfolio and markets.
Right. So pretty ambitious goals.
Yeah.
Right. I think one question that probably the audience also want to know is, you're mainly on the ferrous side, right? Do you have any products planned for the non-ferrous side? Like, what do you offer to non-ferrous foundries?
So we are mainly into the iron castings, but we have good products for the steel castings as well.
Okay.
And that is made in Nagpur, supplied globally.
Okay. So, but still ferrous.
It's still ferrous.
Still ferrous.
As of now, we haven't evaluated looking at non-ferrous.
Right.
It's to do what we do best.
Right. You're focusing on where your expertise lies.
The expertise lies and where our capability lies.
Right.
And we are continuously innovating. I wouldn't say that we may not be there. That's very difficult. But short term, we are focusing on our core competencies.
Correct. So situation might change. I mean, as the road ahead gets lit up. Right.
And you have to, at the end of it, if I were to go into a new segment, it's about what value I add.
Right.
Now, I'll give you an example of something we have done, entered into a new segment space. We have something called a product which is strong C.
Strong C.
Yeah.
Okay.
Strong SI.
Okay, SI.
Okay. It's a silicon dioxide.
Right.
It is tailor-made for the agriculture business.
Okay.
Okay. What it does is increase the yield of the crop. It protects it from diseases. Potentially, we would see that we have to do a lot of studies. It'll reduce the pesticide addition.
Right.
And what is more important, the USP, according to me, is it prevents absorption of heavy metal into the fruits in this plant.
Wow. That is.
So if you look at, let's say, Bengal,
right.
You have a lot of arsenic and other contamination.
Correct.
Can I do something there is what I'm looking at.
Right.
So where I'm adding value, I would like to go. I wouldn't like to go to a place
industry just for the sake of
right. Getting my revenue up.
Right.
And that has been the focus of Elkem. Whatever
Right.
we do, we have to add value.
Correct. That's amazing.
And this business of agriculture strong C, we just started 2 years. We did 3 years of research. We just started with a modest 10 tons of sale in a trial phase 2 years ago. Last year we sold 100 tons. This year, January, February, we will sell 100 tons. It's a small amount. It's a small area that we are working on.
Right.
But the potential is huge. And more importantly, the farmers are going to benefit. So that's an area which I would give focus.
Right.
Why should I go into pesticide industry, for example?
Right.
This is unique. This is special. It's niche.
Right.
We would go into that.
A lot of value addition, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Indian farmer, if we know, with all the challenges he has to face, he needs a 1:5 output to survive.
Right.
So if he spends 1 rupee, he needs to get a 5 rupee to take care of the vagaries in the rain, the climate, which is changing anyway.
Right. There are a lot of odds
against him.
Against him.
So what we can do for that?
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Mr. Iyer, thank you so much for doing this. Where can the audience find you? Your website?
You can contact me on. I'm not so much into LinkedIn, regularly checking it.
Right.
But you could contact me on my mail.
Got it. So I'll put your email ID,
phone number, or
right.
You can just reach out to any of our representatives.
Right.
And say that you want to talk to me. I'm ready, always there. I work with my team and try to visit customers to get a first-hand feedback of
right.
what they want.
Right.
I would estimate that I spend 30% of my time with customers.
So it's a lot of traveling.
It's a lot of traveling, but it's also exciting because every time I go to a customer, I learn something.
Right. Right.
If I visit a plant, I pick up something, I say, can I take it?
Right.
I go to my plant and say, can we do this?
Correct.
I mean, many of the improvements that we have seen and done is coming from interactions with customers also.
Correct. That's great. So thank you, Mr. Iyer. I'll put the link to your website in the description. I'll put your email ID in the description, and thank you for doing this again.
Sure.
To mention further, Elkem is now on the Foundry shop. So we'll put a banner here. You can now check out the entire range of products on the Foundry shop. Everything that we just spoke about on the video should be up there, right? And that's really becoming something that we are adding value to in the Foundry sector by enabling consumers to come and see what new technologies are available in the market with respect to maybe ESG, with respect to something that's actually adding value and not something that's another addition in the vertical.
Absolutely.
So that's really great. Thank you so much for supporting the Foundry shop, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.